Before we begin, I'd like to announce that the board met in executive session on a real estate matter prior to this meeting. And welcome to our regular meeting for December 2018. Mr. Gentili, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Mr. D'Amelio?
Here.
Mr. Oliva?
Here.
Mr. McCluskey?
Here.
Mr. Siegel?
Here.
Mr. Lewis?
Here.
Mr. McGarity?
Here.
Dr. Hart?
Here.
Mr. Holmes?
Here.
And Mr. Wexler.
I'd ask all to please stand. Our Chief of Police will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We're going to deviate from our program a little bit. We have a proclamation to give. As most people know, we had a fatal fire in our township several weeks ago, and we'd like to honor two individuals, one of which is here tonight, Upper Darby Police Officer Mike DeHoratius, for his actions, and also we had a civilian, Mr. Ryan Stump, who was in the neighborhood, also assist Officer DeHoratius. What I'll do is I'm going to ask our Chief of Police, who is also the fire chief in that district, and our fire commissioner, Dr. Hart, to come forward and read the citation, and Officer DeHoratius. I'd also like to invite Superintendent Chitwood to join us up at the podium as well. And if your family is here, if you'd like to come up as well. And I'm pleased to know that DeHoratius' name's familiar to me because I was taught chemistry by his uncle, and I knew his father from after his post-retirement days at Lower Merion at Waldron Mercy as the athletic director and director of safety there. So.
On this side. Front center, get your. How you doing?
Hey, Chief, good to see you, sir.
Yeah.
How are you?
Welcome everybody from officers from Upper Darby, Superintendent Chitwood, Mike DeHoratius and his family. This is a tragic incident that happened last month, and I'll let the commissioner will read the proclamation in a few minutes. But Mike was a volunteer fireman with Penguin. Am I correct, Mike? Is that correct? Yes. And he's also a police officer in Upper Darby, obviously with his co-workers here to support him. But I arrived on the scene that night and the fire was blazing. I saw Mike there. He had already helped the resident and the small child off the roof of the house. And then he went around back with the rest of our police officers and some of the firemen trying to gain entrance into the house, which was impossible because of heavy smoke and fire. Sadly, the victim passed away. But I think what Mike did with his family being there is just what we all do, which was expected of us, and we're used to it. His years of training as a firefighter, his years as a police officer just kicked in, and he did what he had to do. Any one of us sitting out here, or anybody downstairs, or in the Upper Darby Police Department, sure would have done the same thing. But your actions that night saved two people, and you're a credit to Upper Darby Police and to Haverford Township. So, Commissioner.
So whereas the Board of Commissioners of the Township of Haverford, County of Delaware, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, wishes to recognize off-duty Upper Darby Police Officer Michael DeHoratius for going above and beyond the call of duty while driving with his children in the area of Larchmont Avenue, Haverford Township, when he observed that the house at 905 Larchmont Avenue was on fire. And whereas Officer DeHoratius observed a female with a young child on the roof of the house. The female told Officer DeHoratius that her mother was trapped on the first floor of the residence. Officer DeHoratius attempted to enter the residence, but could not do so because of the heavy fire and smoke inside the residence. And whereas Officer DeHoratius then returned to the front of the house, where he and Mr. Ryan Stump, who is a neighbor, coaxed the female to drop her child, she was safely caught by Ryan Stump. The female then proceeded to jump and was safely caught by Officer DeHoratius. And whereas after leading the female and her child to safety, Officer DeHoratius returned to the rear of the residence and attempted to gain entry to save the victim on the first floor, but was unable to do so due to the fire engulfing the entire first floor. Officer DeHoratius and Mr. Stump showed outstanding courage, without regard for their personal safety, which resulted in a saving of 2 lives. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Board of Commissioners and the Township residents extend our heartiest thanks to Officer Michael DeHoratius for his selfless dedication off the clock. May you continue to be of great service to others, and best of luck in all of your endeavors. Proclaimed this 10th of December, 2018.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Nice meeting you.
And thanks for all you gentlemen from Upper Darby for coming out tonight. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Stay safe. Just give these gentlemen a minute to clear the room. So.
Gloria, print all little resumes for you. Little resumes for you for all the boards.
Second item on our agenda is a presentation of a rebate check from PECO for our Phase 3 LED streetlight program. We'd like to thank PECO for visiting Haverford Township this evening to present us with our ceremonial rebate check. Many of the folks who made this project possible are here tonight with us, so the township welcomes all of you. The rebate is from the third phase of the streetlight conversion to LEDs, which the township finished earlier this year. With the help of the Constellation Energy Made Easy program and the excellent installation work done by their contractor, Marco Energy, the township changed over 1,600 lights in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, and 8th wards. While this financial investment of over $900,000 will certainly benefit our infrastructure and reduce future maintenance costs, the environmental impacts are even more noteworthy, reducing upwards of 40,000 kilowatt hours of electricity, 195,000 grams of sulfur dioxide, over 330 metric tons of carbon dioxide, and over 2.8 million grams of nitrous dioxides. Combining this recent phase with our previous 2 phases in 2016 and 2017, the township has changed out over 2,300 total lights and look forward to finishing the remaining 875 lights with Phase 4 to occur in 2019. So on behalf of the entire township, thank you again to PECO, Constellation, Marco Energy, our township staff, and the volunteers from our Environmental Advisory Committee, whose knowledge, ideas, and support help us move forward to find more ways to preserve and improve our environment. To present the check, Steve Clark, who not only serves on the township's Environmental Advisory Committee, but also works for PECO's Smart Ideas program, is here with us tonight to present the check. So we'll turn things over to Steve at this point. We'll come up there.
So I'm joined by, I'm Steve Clark, I'm on the EAC and also work for PECO. Mark Binder is my colleague. He's also working on a variety of projects, stadium, LEDs, and so we'll hopefully continue a lot more work with you guys. So on behalf of PECO and the Haverford EAC, I would like to congratulate Haverford Township for your commitment to making energy efficient upgrades. This, by the way, what I'm going to present, the check, is actually miscommunications to Phase 2 and 3. So the numbers I have reflect that. Today, we'd like to recognize your streetlight projects and show how you achieved 891,000 kilowatt hours annual reduction in energy consumption. Starting in 2017, we retrofitted streetlights from 70 to 400 watt metal halides fixtures to LEDs. The This is 2,296 total streetlights. In total, this represents the equivalent of 17,196 trees planted, or 74,000 gallons of gasoline not burned, or the equivalent of 742 typical houses' annual electric use. So this is a big deal. Thank you very much. Special thanks to Macro Energy and the trade allies who worked on the project, Zach Horan and Steve Herschenreiter. Together, we would like to present the Haverford Township with a check for $78,955.36, representing the incentive savings for achieving their streetlight projects. You guys want to come down?
Yep, we'll come. There's money involved. Amy's going to take care of that right away.
Want to join us, Chuck?
To the right. Thank you very much.
Good to see you. Hey, thank you.
Commissioners, I don't, if you're, I know you've all spoke to Mr. Blackburn. Joe Blackburn is with PICO.
Yeah, he's Blaine's buddy.
Sometimes it's good to put face to the name, and Joe's been instrumental to the township in many capacities. So it's a good opportunity for Joe to meet the commissioners as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the check. At this point, it's our citizens forum. We have no registered speakers. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on an agenda item this evening? There being none, we'll move on to the budget hearing and adoption.
Mr. President.
Mr. Holmes.
Mr. President, I move that we accept the 2019 preliminary budget. Need a second.
Motion made and seconded by Mr. Siegel.
Okay, since the time of our preliminary budget several weeks ago to now, there have been a couple changes that I would like to recommend to the board. I am amending my motion to include these changes, and we'll ask Mr. Siegel as the seconder to agree with them as well. The general fund total revenues in the preliminary budget that we passed several weeks ago was $44,872,379. The final total revenues will be $44,910,379, and that is approximately $47,000 change increase. Total expenditures obviously are going to increase by the same amount of money. The sewer fund has a significant decrease. The preliminary numbers we had were $4,845,909. The final number for total revenues is $4,597,963. That reflects significant higher aqua flows than projected, and the RHM budget coming in lower than projected in our preliminary. We also moved 2 employees to the general fund, which was more appropriate in keeping with our required accounting procedures. And with these changes, we were able to reduce the sewer rate by 30 cents per 1,000 gallons of water, and that is a significant decrease. And then finally, the capital fund has a $17,000 change, an increase, and that is from $18,836,000 to $18,854,000, reflecting a change of approximately $18,000. That change relates to added funding for electric vehicle charging stations, changing out all of the ceiling lights at the stadium to LED, and a starter allocation for facility energy efficiency study with applicable grants and PICO rebates. The increase of approximately $47,000 in the total revenues of the general fund comprised an increased allocation for the HPED of $25,000. This was very well-spent money last year and something that I support doing again. It also includes the purchase of a used electric vehicle for us to replace one of our codes enforcement vehicles. And it includes a new item, and an item at the suggestion of Commissioner Siegel. He has had great experience in the last couple of years hosting and paying for, often out of his own funds or some sponsorships in his ward or campaign funds. He has supported a shredding event that we have done here at the township. And we as a board are going to recommend, are going to accept, or at least consider Mr. Siegel's suggestion that we as a township host 4 shredding events in the township once each season, as the several that Mr. Siegel has supervised have all been very successful and have certainly been responded to very positively. So I ask my board to consider the amendments to the budget as I've just described them. Mr. Siegel, as the person who seconded my motion, do you accept these changes?
Yes, I do.
Okay, does anyone have any?
Motion made and then accepted.
Does anyone have any questions or comments on the board?
Yeah, I have a comment.
All right, Mr. D'Amelio first.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only comment I have is that I want to make sure, and it was, I was satisfied with the response, but I think the residents need to know, this is for our residents, and that when you come with your shredding box or materials, that you'll have to show your driver's license, and we all agree with that, correct?
Right, and I think what we've done is we've budgeted we've budgeted enough, and I think probably over budgeted, and we'll do this as we go forward, not only to pay for the trucks that are necessary to come and do this work, because it's shredded right on site, so folks have the security of seeing their bank records or whatever records they want shredded, actually go into a shredding box, go up into the machine and be crunched into a million pieces, but also to take into account the personnel that we will pay at these shredding events to do the kind of identification requests that we expect. It's a township service, and it's something we're going to do, and it's no different from what, Montgomery County, if you want to clean out your kitchen, go to the transfer station, over in Belmont Hills, you have to provide evidence that you live in Lower Merion Township, and then, of course, you're allowed to use those facilities. So it's a perfectly acceptable condition on this, and one I think we all anticipate doing when our township manager plans this event for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McGarity.
I just wanted to say, I was over there for the shredding with Dan, and I think it went very well. I was number 106. I understand it was about 270, and in fact, the machine got filled, so that tells you right there it's a total success. Plus the fact that this is another reason why people move into Haverford Township, because of the services that we provide in the township, the tree cutting, shredding, trash, all that, recycling, many more services that we have. This is another reason why they do that, because we're what they call a first-class township. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGarity. Any other comments on the budget?
I would just recommend to all my colleagues that we adopt this budget as amended.
I'd like to point out, I don't think it was an increase from the preliminary budget at all, as far as same amount as a couple weeks ago, right, Amy? Pretty much.
Tax increase is still 2.15%, so that is what we proposed.
Yep.
And the trash fee is still 227, which is what we
Correct.
proposed.
So it's the same. Any other questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Mr. D'Amelio?
Yes.
Mr. Oliva?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. McGarity?
Yes, before I vote, I just want to say, before somebody raises cane with me, I forgot to mention all volunteer fire services in Haverford Township and the wonderful police department we have here.
Thank you, Mr. McGarry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Hart.
Yes.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes.
And Mr. Wexler.
Yes. Item B.
Mr. President. Mr. President, I move we adopt ordinance P23 of 2018, sewer rental charge, adopt the final reading of ordinance P23 2018, authorizing the imposition of an annual sewer rate in the amount of $4.40 per 1,000 gallons of water consumed. That is net of the reduction.
Correct.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Siegel. Any questions on that? Please call the roll.
Mr. D'Amelio.
Yes.
Mr. Oliva.
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey.
Yes.
Mr. Siegel.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
McGarity.
Yes.
Dr. Hart.
Yes.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes.
Mr. Wexler.
Yes. Budget item C.
Mr. President, I move we adopt the final reading of ordinance P24-2018, establishing the annual trash fee at $227.
Motion made and seconded by Mr. Oliva.
Mr. President, this reflects the trash fee increase that we addressed at our last budget meeting. This fee does not cover 100% the cost of attributable to Public Works for the collection of trash, but it takes us closer into the 80% to 90% range, which is, I think, strikes a fair balance between charging per house versus, charging on the basis of our proportional tax shares. And I recommend that it be adopted.
Yeah. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a statement that that increase to 227 is because of the fee that we pay to dump our trash at Delaware County.
That is correct.
The impact is, we haven't raised anything, we don't hire more people or anything like that. We're getting charged more by the county, and we've passed that on to our residents.
It's a fair point, an excellent point, and I think, Mr. Gentili, correct me if I'm wrong, we might be dealing with a $500,000
It's
increase?
just shy of a $500,000, correct, impact.
Would you tell them what the fee went to per ton so that we get a
We
magnitude
went to $53 per ton, correct?
from 33 or
From 33.
Yeah, from
Yes.
33? So $20, roughly $20 increase per ton is what the county has imposed on us. Any other questions or comments? Please call the roll.
I just want
Oh, Mr. Siegel.
to make sure the public understands that the county, instead of, increasing their taxes, have imposed this on us. In the 10 years that I've been a commissioner, it was started at $0, and it is now up to $53. And we can't pass it on to anyone but the residents, and that's what they do. And, so understand when you see your county tax bill and it hasn't gone up, it's gone up through us because we don't have a choice.
Thank you, Mr. Siegel.
I'm sorry, can I add one other statement to that? And as Mr. Siegel stated, historically, when I inherited the manager's position, we were not paying for any trash disposal fees. When the initial fee, the county started charging $33 a ton, that was almost close to $1 million impact.
Remember, it was 07, wasn't it?
That's correct.
Right.
And we've made some, with the staff, the Public Works Department and the leadership in Amy's department and throughout the township, we made some impacts where we've started yard waste. We implemented and changed our recycling program, and we're able to make some changes that actually reduced our trash fee from close to $980,000 down to about $490,000. So we've done some good things.
You've been working hard with the staff here.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. The introduction of single-stream recycling greatly it decreased our trash stream, and I think yard waste is also
Monday yard
terrific.
waste has about close to a $200,000 impact if we lost that, because the residents would be putting that into the trash stream.
Yeah.
Pretty heavy. So,
Thanks for pointing that out. Any other questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Mr. D'Amelio.
Yes.
Mr. Oliva.
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey.
Yes.
Mr. Siegel.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. McGarity.
Yes.
Dr. Hart.
Yes.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes.
And Mr. Wexler.
Yes. Budget item D, Mr. Holmes.
Mr. President, I move we adopt ordinance number 2856 of 2018, fixing the tax rate for the year 2019 at 8.361 mils.
Second.
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
I did.
I think Commissioner Siegel did.
Dan, doesn't matter.
I would note this, this was the same tax increase that we discussed in our budget meeting 1 month ago. Represents approximately a 2.15% real estate tax increase from 8.185 to 8.361 mils. For putting this into specific dollars so people can understand, the median property assessment in our township is approximately $145,000. That means half of our homes are assessed at that number or lower, and the other half are at that number or higher. Anyone at the median number of 145 will see an increase of approximately $25 per year. Our average property assessment, as opposed to our median, is approximately $175,000. And anybody whose property assessment is at the average value will, the increase will be approximately $31 per year. And as we talked about in the last meeting, this is in light of the cost drivers that we were shown at the last budget hearing, and it is necessary for us to do this to continue to provide the services we provide and continue our first-class township status. And I recommend that we adopt this tax.
Thank you. Any other comments? Please call the roll.
Mr. D'Amelio?
Yes.
Mr. Oliva?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Garrity?
Yes.
Dr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes. Budget item E, Mr. Holmes.
Mr. President, I move we adopt ordinance number 2857 of 2018, appropriating funds established to be required for specific purpose of financing the municipal government for the year 2019, including all taxes, fees, service charges, and other revenue sources provided within all funds.
Second.
Motion made and seconded by Mr. Oliva. Any questions? Please.
So this is simply the final act that we do in order to enact our budget.
Please call the roll.
Mr. D'Amelio?
Yes.
Mr. Oliva?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. McGarity?
Yes.
Dr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes. And that concludes the budget portion of this evening's meeting. Mr. Holmes, you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Mr. President, I really appreciate how seamless and smoothly the budget hearing went this year and has gone in the last several years. That is due in no small part to the excellent leadership of our township manager and our assistant township manager and finance director, Ms. Cuthbertson, but also the cooperation of all the department heads who got their material into the township quickly. And certainly I appreciate the work of my colleagues who read this budget and reviewed everything, and we had a very smooth and efficient process. So thank you all. In particular, thank you to our excellent staff for once again guiding us through this process. That's all I have, Mr.
I agree. I think the staff and Mr. Gentili deserve a round of applause on this one. At this point, we move to our regular meeting. Are there any commissioner committee updates by any commissioners? Being none, I'll ask our township auditor. Take center stage, please.
I can read this way.
Let me turn that around.
No.
It's a release. You can give it either way.
Underneath, it's got the two rings you pull. See the rings? There you go.
Wait for the expert here. It's
There we go.
There you go. That wasn't on the CPA exam, how to solve that. I reviewed the most recent expenditures and warrants. I found no irregularities, and all my questions were answered to my satisfaction. In addition, I did review the budget. I found that the expense and revenue projections were reasonable, and that there were no deficiencies in any of the projections or controls. Also, I want to mention that I made the mistake of betting on the Eagles on Sunday. I'm never doing that again.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson, and thank you for your oversight. Next item is approval of minutes from the regular meeting of November 13th.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. D'Amelio.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of November 13th, 2018, and the preliminary budget meeting minutes of November 19th, 2018.
Second?
Seconded by Mr. Oliva. Any changes, additions, or comments, or corrections? Please call the roll.
Mr. D'Amelio?
Before I vote, I just want to state that I wasn't at the preliminary budget meeting, so, but yes to the regular meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Oliva?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. McGarity?
Yes.
Dr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes. Item 9 is the approval of warrants for this month.
Mr. President.
Mr. Holmes.
Mr. President, I move that we approve warrant number 12 of 2018 totaling $7,066,020.93, comprising the general and sewer fund payroll for November 15th, 2018 in the amount of $647,821.46. The general and sewer fund payroll for November 29th, 2018 in the amount of $646,936.06. General fund disbursements, number 12 of 2018, in the amount of $5,384,239.53. Sewer fund disbursements, number 12 of 2018, in the amount of $124,991.33. Community Development Block Grant Fund disbursement, number 12 of 2018, in the amount of $85,842.83. Capital Projects Fund disbursement number 12 of 2018 in the amount of $169,076.88, and a credit card statement ending November 27, 2018 in the amount of $7,112.84.
Second?
Motion made and seconded by Mr. Oliva. Any questions?
Mr. President, our auditor has been through the warrants. Any questions that he has raised have been answered to his satisfaction, and he has reported thusly to our board. It's his recommendation we approve these warrants, and my recommendation as well.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mr. D'Amelio?
Yes.
Mr. Oliva?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. McGarity?
Yes.
Dr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes. Item 10 is ordinance P22, 2018. I would ask that we, since this is my word, I'd ask that after I read this, somebody would make the motion to adopt the first reading of ordinance P22, 2018, amending and supplementing the general laws of the Township of Haverford, Chapter 182, zoning, by reclassifying the zoning classification of a portion of the property known as Delaware County Folio Number 22-09-0094-00, also known as 599 Glendale Road, from ROS/Outdoor Recreation and Open Space District to R4 Low to Medium Density Residential District.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Holmes, second.
I'd second it.
Mr. D'Amelio is second. As you know, this is first reading on this. This is reclassifying the old Township Recreation Building to conform with the rest of Glendale Road as residential.
We are reserving some of that space for open space.
Yes, there is, there'll be a pathway through, and the rear space is still outdoor recreation and open space. Any other questions? Please call the roll.
Mr. D'Amelio?
Yes.
Mr. Oliva?
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. McGarity?
Yes.
Dr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes.
Mr. Wexler?
Yes.
Before you go on, I just wanted to say that the funds that, from the sale of this go back into recreation.
Right, that was restriction of the deed. That was a restriction of the deed when we were from the grant and of getting that space years ago. So that is correct. What I'd like to do is, Dr. Hart, do you want to read this? We're going to divide item number 11 into two separate things.
Sure. Ordinance number P25, 2018, a motion to adopt the first reading of ordinance number P25, 2018, authorizing traffic restrictions on the following highway: sticker parking only, I think that should be Hampstead, not Hampstead, Road, both sides, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m., Monday through Friday. This ordinance, this is another SEPTA parking ordinance. Just a few comments. When we moved to Penfield Avenue 30 years ago, the attractions was we were a quarter mile from the 100 line. I commuted on it regularly. My wife still commutes on it regularly. And I think it's reason people move to our, one of the reasons people move to Havertown because of the transportation. On the flip side of that, when we moved here, there was no commuter parking on Penfield Avenue because the streets closer to the train stations you were able to park on. Subsequently, the board has restricted parking. There's now, most days, probably on my street, 12 to 15 cars parking there. And there's two sides to this. I don't want to discourage people from using SEPTA. We passed this climate resolution. We want people to be using the trains and not driving into the city. On the other hand, there's a tendency of some commuters to be rushing to get to work, and they're speeding in the neighborhoods. I witnessed on Penfield, 2 incidents in the past year with commuters and residents screaming at each other about the incident. So we need a solution. We need a comprehensive solution. I recognize that if we restrict parking on Hampstead tonight, that my guess is Penfield will come in another month or two. So I think we need to look at this and try to find a parking solution that allows us to still have people use SEPTA, but gets the parking out of the neighborhoods.
Thank you, Dr. Hart. And just, I heard Mr. McGarity say second low, so we're good to discuss. Any other questions or comments on the sticker parking for him?
Is that about McGarity?
Yeah, you seconded.
Oh, I second it, okay.
Yeah, okay.
I thought you were talking about Jerry. You said he moved in there about 30 years ago and the P&W line was running. Well, when I moved in Haverford Township, I don't think the line was running.
Yeah,
That must have been
well,
100
that's
years
true.
ago.
We didn't know about heavier than aircraft then.
You had to build it before it ran, Jim. Okay. Mr. Siegel.
I have spoken on this issue many times. People move into the township, you purchase a house, you don't purchase your street. Residents in my ward regularly drive to those areas. We need to stop zoning parking because eventually we are going to zone entire neighborhoods, as Dr. Hart said. This board continues to talk about it briefly every time we have these ordinances, and then nothing is done. I don't have a solution. We've talked in the past about DVRPC, trying to get grants, and over the years, nothing has been done except that the scourge of the zoning parking restrictions continues to expand. I don't know where it's ever going to end, and it doesn't solve the problem. I urge this board to, instead of approving further parking, to whether we have to enable, it's our engineer, it's someone in the staff, to begin the process of a real solution, because this isn't working. It seems like every month or two, we were here a couple of months ago with residents on the adjacent block, and now this, and now it's a matter of time. And it makes no sense. Yes, you buy a house because you're close to SEPTA, but that also means that other people want to be close to SEPTA, which means they're going to want to park in those areas. We don't have parking lots, we have streets. And last I knew, our streets are public streets, but we are turning them into the private domains of the residents who do not buy the streets. It is time for this to end and for us to have a solution rather than to come back next month with whatever street decides that they don't want their neighbors in other wards, because that's who's parking there. People aren't driving from Berwyn or Aston to park in Haverford. They're driving from the 4th Ward and other locations, and it's an absurdity.
Thank you, Mr. Siegel. Any other comments?
Just let me add, I agree with Commissioner Siegel. I think we need to come up with a plan going forward, and we need to do it right now. We need to have our engineers start working on a plan for this. For me, it doesn't, I will be voting for this tonight because I believe people need to have some relief from these parking issues, but we need to come up with a plan so we're not dealing with this every week, or, I'm sorry, every month.
Thank you, Mr. Oliva. I mean, this is a tough problem. We are doing some things. We did get the grant to build we're going to pick up approximately 25 spaces at the next stop up from the Penfield, at the Beechwood station. There is space along there. We do have to look at some of the adjacent space. We may have to give up some off-street space down there at Benoa Road to do this. There's no happy solution, but if we can get more parking there and get people off there, so at least it does alleviate some of the problem. And it's a problem, as Mr. Siegel points out, it's a problem everywhere. I have people parking on my street that take the bus on Township Line, and it's just a matter of fact. It just makes sense to get closer to either Westchester Pike or Township Line and grab the bus, so you don't have to pay exorbitant parking downtown, or to keep the emissions down if you're environmentally concerned. So we do need to look at this, and also, I hate to put any burden on our police department, but enforcement needs to be done too when people do park in front of the driveways and stuff. We have to encourage our people to call 911. They do when they call us to complain, but we don't have the police power. It's just common sense and courtesy. So I'll work. We'll have to put together some type of group to work on this township-wide. Okay, so are we ready to, any other comments? There's no comments from you had a comment, we had an open forum at the beginning of the meeting if anybody wants to speak on an agenda item. At the end of the meeting, there's a citizens forum, you can speak at that point. Yes.
It's also,
When you made that statement earlier, I don't think it was explained that when you came up with the individual. I said that we had no registered speakers and asked if there's any member of the audience who would want to speak on an agenda item for this evening. We always take citizen input before we vote. That's the time, that's why it's on the schedule. But we also have input. We're only voting on this one street. There's also, at the end, there's another citizens forum that you're welcome to come up and speak on.
Second reading as well, so.
Yes. Yeah, this is only a first reading, so. Mr. Hart, Dr. Hart.
if SEPTA builds their plan is to build a spur to King of Prussia, this is an issue that's going to the parking is going to become a bigger issue. And that's years down the line.
It's going to be massive. I'm going to tell you that now.
And be a few more people using the lines.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Gentili, please call the roll.
Mr. Emilio?
Yes.
Mr. Oliva?
Yes.
McCluskey?
No.
Mr. Siegel?
No.
Mr. Lewis?
No.
McGarity?
Yes.
Dr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Holmes?
No.
And Mr. Wexler?
No. We lost. 5 noes.
Okay, second part of the ordinance is,
So that's what we're going to do is we're going to classify this as ordinance P26, 2018 for the second ordinance.
ordinance P26, 2018, parking of all vehicles prohibited at all times, Stanton Road, east side from Briarwood Road to a point 90 feet north thereof.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions on this one?
Where is this the same situation?
No, this is.
No, this is,
Now, this is an issue where residents are dealing with this business that's on Westchester Pike having some programs like during the weekend and sometimes during the week, and they're parking close to the corner, and sometimes it makes it difficult to turn into that street. And if there are emergency vehicles that need to get by and whatnot, we need to make a buffer so that there's room.
So this is
a safety issue. Yeah.
safety issue in terms of the 90 feet from the intersection.
Right, exactly.
Any other questions? Please call the roll.
Mr. D'Amelio.
Yes.
Mr. Oliva.
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey.
Yes.
Mr. Siegel.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. McGarity.
Yes.
Dr. Hart.
Yes.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes.
And Mr. Wexler.
Yes. Item 12,
Mr. President?
Mr. Siegel.
Motion to adopt resolution number 2107, 2018, approving the 2019 Board of Commissioners, Boards, and Commissions meeting dates.
Second.
Made and seconded by Mr. McGarity. Any questions? Please call the roll.
Mr. D'Amelio.
Yes.
Mr. Oliva.
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey.
Yes.
Mr. Siegel.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. McGarity.
Yes.
Dr. Hart.
Yes.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes.
Mr. Wexler.
Yes. Item 13.
Mr. President?
Mr. Siegel.
Motion to adopt resolution number 2109, 2018, that the Township of Haverford submit an application to Delaware County for funding in the amount of $50,000 for the home program.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. McGarity. Any questions on this? Please call the roll.
Mr. D'Amelio.
Yes.
Mr. Oliva.
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey.
Yes.
Mr. Siegel.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. McGarity.
Yes.
Dr. Hart.
Yes.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes.
And Mr. Wexler.
Yes. Item 14.
Motion to adopt resolution number 2111, 2018, authorizing the township manager to file an application with the county for the township's 2019 road program in the amount of $66,960.
Second.
Motion made and seconded by Mr. Please call the roll.
Mr. D'Amelio.
Yes.
Mr. Oliva.
Yes.
Mr. McCluskey.
Yes.
Mr. Siegel.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. McGarity.
Yes.
Dr. Hart.
Yes.
Mr. Holmes.
Yes.
And Mr. Wexler.
Yes. At this point, I would invite any citizen that wants to come up and address the board on any item, agenda or otherwise. You're please welcome to come up. I need you to state your name and address for the record, and then you're free to speak.
My name is Nancy Strong. I reside at 1007 Hampstead Road, and I submitted a petition for permit parking on Hampstead Road. It is as much a safety issue there as it is for the ordinance passed on Westchester Pike tonight. People are driving SUVs over sedans, and when people are parked on both sides of the street up to the stop sign where the police have been called to put warnings on vehicles, it's becoming a problem of safety. And people cannot get out of their driveways in the morning without putting notes on people who park there before 8 o'clock in the morning. Penfield happens to be the busiest stop on the PNW line, and it's becoming problematic for the people that work there. On a personal note, to get an ambulance through that street during the summer, the driver had to back up and go around and manipulate coming through there. So the people who are parking their SUVs on the street to go to work are clogging the street to the homeowners and for emergency vehicles.
Thank you very much. Any other member of the audience that would like to speak? Come up, sir. Thank you. Thank you for being understanding on the previous.
I'm Lou Maresca. I'm at 1008 Hampstead Road. I understand the dilemma that you face, but to continue to kick the can down the street isn't going to help any. We see the sprawl taking over everywhere. You can't park in many areas of Ardmore, which are not residential areas. They're commercial areas, but these are residential areas that we're talking about with long-standing residents that live there. And when you say that people who live a mile or two away have just as much right to that street to park on it as the people whose homes are on that block, I'm not so sure. I do know what an alternative might develop out of this. You might see some of these neighborhoods become like South Philadelphia, where people put cones and barricades up on the sidewalks in front of their homes to protect parking areas for them. I don't think anybody wants it to come to that point either. So something does have to be done. I'm not here to know what your alternatives are. You know what the alternatives are. But I think first and foremost, you take care of your own. You take care of the people that are on those blocks, the people that live there, the people that clear the sidewalks of snow so other people can pass, and so that kids in the neighborhood can sled down the hill, which Hampstead is the most popular sledding hill in the entire neighborhood. And I can attest to jumping out in front of people, flying through those neighborhoods, which is a separate issue altogether, I understand. It's a separate issue. But I've jumped out in front of people screaming at them that there are kids in this neighborhood and you don't drive through a neighborhood like this at 50 miles an hour. As far as the parking situation, I didn't keep the tally, but my sense is that you voted down the ordinance to have a parking permit from the hours that were requested. And I would strongly recommend that you reconsider that, because I can tell you almost with certainty what's going to happen is it is going to evolve or devolve into an argument between people over those spaces in front of their homes that they don't want people from a mile or two away coming and parking in and leaving their automobiles there all day long. There's alternatives to that. There's other public transportation to get to the train stops. There's Uber, there's Lyft, there's carpooling. There's people that can take people to the train station and then go back home to the neighborhood they came from. There's a lot of other alternatives. They don't need to turn Hampstead and all the other blocks in that area into parking lots. They weren't intended to be parking lots in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other, sir? Come on.
Hi, my name is Matt Evans. I live at 1002 Hampstead Road. And I appreciate the situation that you're all in, and obviously we're here to try to come to some understanding and compromise. Commissioner Siegel, you mentioned the sort of the public streets, private homes, and that we bought our house, not our street, but we also, by members of being in part of Township of Haverford and a top-class township, as you talked about, and Mr. McGeary, you mentioned that as well, we want to be able to have access to the public goods and public services, and the inability for school buses, the inability for our own emergency vehicles to be able to get up and down a street when people are parked in a way that causes potential damage, both for the residents and potentially, life-threatening issues, I think is the biggest concern that we have. We would love for the problem to be somebody else's. It's ours. We live 2 blocks from the station, and we appreciate that we're in the position to do this. Whether or not we can take public land or some of the grass space that we have around Manoa and make that parking, great solution potentially. But you're right, this is not something we kick down the road. Whether it's your streets or somebody else's, it's going to still come to the issue of having to come up with a solution. I know that for myself and a number of the residents, my family, a big issue is just safety and making sure we have access. That if we're in the middle of the block and we're parked in and we have an emergency vehicle that can't get through, whether it's fire and the tragedy that happened this past month, or the emergency vehicles, police or ambulance, that's something that we want to make sure is not lost in this conversation. Appreciate the time.
Thank you very much. Is there any other member of the public on this subject or any other subject? And thank you for your comments, all three of you. We are in a difficult place. It's a difficult situation. We can't, obviously, if we restrict parking in the 1000 block, then the next block up will be here next month or 2 months down the road as their driveways get blocked. I understand it. I just babysat on the Penfield block for my daughter and 3 small children as they were away, and I was penned in to her driveway a couple times this week. So I understand the dilemma firsthand. And I live on the other side of Westchester Pike, off the township line. So I've seen it firsthand. Policing is key, and then also we need to look at that. I'm also one of 2 members on the board that drives a fire truck and did drive an ambulance for 15 years here in the township as a volunteer, and have taken off my fair share of mirrors on the narrow streets, either on your neighborhood or Westgate Hills, because people are parked on both sides and you just can't get a truck down there. Whether we need to restrict parking to one side in those areas is something we need to look at and look at hard and quickly, and by our police department. So our special operations group and our traffic analysis group needs to get on that this week and take a look at it so they can advise us in the best course of action. We're not traffic engineers, so our police department, the safety people, our township engineer need to take a look at this and get back to us, and we will try and make every effort to resolve this problem, looking for other, we did get the grant to improve the parking at the Beechwood Station. We think that's going to add somewhere between 22 and 25 spaces, so we can encourage people to go down there, another 25 cars to get down there, but we have other places to look as well, and we will be vigilant on it. Mr. Siegel won't let us go. You have something else to say, sir?
Yeah, just curious with
At the mic so people at home could hear, please.
Sir, just point of clarification, the 5-4 vote on the first reading, does it lead to no second reading? Is that?
No. There will be a second reading, so it could change by next month.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Mr. Siegel.
I mean, we hear two things. We hear a public safety issue, which is something that I think the police can and will deal with. But I would ask whether it's now or in new business that we either form a committee of this board or we get advised what is the best way to move this issue forward. You know, I feel like I'm just screaming into
I have been, no, we're not screaming. I've going to be asking the township manager to direct the police department and the township engineer to take a look at this on a more formal basis, and kind of the ad hoc basis we've been addressing at every meeting. So I think their first comments, and then we, if under new business you want to make a recommendation that we form a committee, a subcommittee to look at this, then by all means.
If I could just,
Mr. Murray.
I mean, you know, we've talked about the area in the Penfield Station before, and you know, we are looking into, Larry, correct me if I'm wrong, but we are looking into applying for grants in this upcoming year and years to come to do something similar to what we did at Beechwood, in terms of finding a space in there around Manoa or Karakong if we can, and we can work it out with the engineers and get the proper grants to building some sort of structure that would house parking that could hopefully help alleviate this in the neighborhood. So we are looking into potential solutions to that. But I think there's an important distinction here. The part of what, you know, does attract people to purchase homes in this town is the ease of transportation to the city. I mean, those trains are crowded, and Penfield is a crowded station, just as Ardmore Junction is, just as Ardmore Avenue, just as Township Line is. I mean, it's amazing how many people board that train at Township Line where there is no parking station, and it's in literally the middle of a very busy 4-lane highway. It's not easily accessible, and there are hundreds of people that get on that stop every day. So, I mean, that is part of the benefit. What this proposal did is, you know, is prohibiting parking on both sides. So there's two different things we're talking about. If we're going to talk about parking and safety issues in terms of emergency vehicles getting down, that doesn't require prohibiting anybody from parking on that street on both sides. This ordinance as written is strictly just saying we don't want anybody who's going to commute on SEPTA to park here. And I think that is contrary to what we as a board should be encouraging people to do. If there's an issue with making a right-hand turn or a left-hand turn on an emergency vehicle onto the Hampstead, that is something I would ask the chief to look at, and maybe we can recommend, and maybe then the language can be changed. But this as is, I mean, we as a board can not continually just push back streets to prohibit parking for SEPTA. I mean, that is contrary to what is beneficial for the township as a whole, and that's what our responsibility is. So that would be my 2 cents.
Thank you, Mr. McCluskey.
Mr. President, I just would follow up. I don't know, sitting here today, and I've been on the board an awfully long time, I don't know what our requirements are to have roads that have parking on both sides and have roads that only have parking on one side. I live on Chestnut Avenue. We only have parking on one side. I've driven down streets in Haverford Township that don't seem any wider than my street, and yet it has parking on both sides. Whether people are parking to commute or parking for Super Bowl Sunday or parking for a neighborhood party, you know, if the size of cars now and the amount of cars that people have are making a bunch of our streets, you know, dangerous for purposes of our first responders, that needs to be addressed. We don't need to take board action. I think we need to be informed by our police and by our engineer as to, I mean, a comprehensive view of
And that's
all of these.
that's what I was asking for. You restated the.
I mean, I don't see it so much as a commissioner thing as a.
Right, and that's why I'd asked that the chief and the township engineer, and as I did previously a few minutes ago, take a look at that and do that. Chief?
We'll go down it tomorrow. We did do a survey on it when the request came out, but we'll take a hard look at it all this week and then we'll see how many cars are actually parking there during the day, so we can get a real read of what's going on down there and see what other issues that maybe we can make a recommendation before the next meeting. So we'll come back to the report.
But I think Mr. Holmes's point is that we take a look at this in a comprehensive approach throughout the township for those areas where, from an emergency services point of view and other commuting point of views, where it makes sense to look at the parking and make recommendations to do that. So, thank you.
I mean, yeah, I mean,
That's every street, almost.
There are certain neighborhoods that,
A lot of neighborhoods in Haverford Township.
but the issue is if it's a danger, right? If it's a danger, then it's not 8 to 11 Monday through Friday, right? I mean, 8 to 11 Monday through Friday means I don't want to SEPTA commuter parking there. So if it's really a dangerous issue, it should just be some portion of that parking has to be excluded 24/7, right? I mean,
I would concur. I think even Mr. D'Amelio probably got a feel for that last night driving Santa Claus around for the Noah Fire Company. We went through some very tight streets in his neighborhood and some other neighborhoods, so it needs a comprehensive look to see. You're right, Mr. McCluskey, it's probably just as big a detriment or safety concern in the evening because unfortunately, and I'm probably just guilty, I had 4 girls, everybody's got more than 2 cars these days, so they're not all in the driveway, they're out on the street, and they're double parked on both sides of the street, depending as this little young girl's going to be driving, she's probably going to ask you for the keys in a couple more years, so.
and this is an issue we talk about, not necessarily just about SEPTA. I mean, this comes up every couple months. We talked about it in my ward a couple months ago, when new businesses come in and parking is an issue. We have way too many cars for the way this township is constructed, and it's up to us to come up with solutions. But I think we have to think through what our solutions are and not just.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not only that. It's not only traffic or emergency vehicles that are able to get up that street. I believe that even like as Bill said in my neighborhood, if you have so many SUVs that are parking and you can't get out of your driveway, it makes it very difficult. And children going to school or walking to school, that makes it difficult because you can't see traffic coming. And if people are speeding up there because they're late for work and they're trying to get to the train, that's scary. I mean, it seems to me that we were only granting relief for a couple of hours, which may have helped alleviate some of that for the residents, and that's why I supported this.
Okay. We're not going to solve this evening, but we'll get some advice from our experts, from our law enforcement, and from our engineers.
Bill, can I just say one thing? Remember a couple months back when the young lady made the presentation all about the trains going up to King of Prussia and all that, and how it would benefit us? And then I said to her, well, how is it going to benefit us? It's going to create more parking problems, more people riding, and it will. I mean, there's no doubt a lot of people take the train to King of Prussia. But my point being is she walked out the door. We haven't seen her since. And I think really we should have SEPTA involved in some of these talks let them come up with some ideas. Because just like they just found 25 spots that a couple of years ago, Chris Connell asked about the same thing, and they didn't have it then, but they have it now. I'm sure there's a lot of other places that SEPTA has that could provide parking for their train stations, but they have to point it out because we don't know the property that SEPTA owns. I do know that at one time there was going to be a 4-lane highway all the way from 69th Street up to Bryn Mawr, so all that land on the right-hand side, the northbound side, southbound side going into 69th Street is all SEPTA's land. So maybe there's places in there where we could build some kind of a parking lot or anything like that, a tiered lot, but they have to come and tell us. We're not involving them, and we should be because it's as much their headache as it is ours. We're sitting here taking all the heat, and they're doing nothing. So maybe we should get in here.
So,
with
well,
Commissioner.
just to clarify, and I'm not saying we shouldn't get SEPTA involved, but SEPTA is not funding the parking lot. The funds came from DVRPC, which I'm not sure if are they definite yet or?
No, we haven't seen anything. It was just a verbal commitment from Mr. Leach.
So they didn't.
Yeah, well, I think possibly they should fund some of it because it's on their property and it's people that are using their transportation system and they're making money off of that. So maybe we should talk to them about that also.
I agree, and I'll even volunteer to be the pain in the neck to SEPTA and the Delaware Valley Group for Transportation Committee to do that. I mean, we're a border community. We're paying the price for the success of public transportation, and we need some help. So we will look at that, and I'll make you that pledge that I'll work with Mr. Gentili to spearhead that effort with the agencies that we think we can get relief from and/or grant money down the road. Any other comments? Yes, this lady talking. Yes, ma'am, come on in.
I think it would be a good idea if the corner of Powder Mill and Hampstead was specifically looked into. It happens to be a busy area when the bus is there. And unfortunately, people are parking up to the stop sign. The police have been called, and I think that there's better use of their time than to have them come out and merely put a summons on a car, or an SUV in this case, that's parked up to the stop sign. They have to be 30 feet before that. And it's becoming problematic at that intersection.
We will take a look at it, but ma'am, the only recourse we have as a board is our police department for infractions of parking violations in state law. So, it's not a bad use of their time. It's something that they have to do. It's part of their duties, and that's why we have a police force and a police department to enforce our regulations, both traffic, criminal, and other regulations that they're tasked with doing that. We can't do it as ourselves, but they're our first group, and if they need assistance, they'll come higher to the township manager and to this board for greater assistance. But thank you very much. New business. Any new business from the board? Other business. Mr. D'Amelio.
I just want to thank the Westgate Hills Civic Association for hosting Santa Sunday. It was a wonderful event up at the park in Westgate. I want to thank the Manoa Fire Company for bringing Santa to that event and bringing Santa around the first ward. The kids and the residents truly enjoyed having Santa, although some of them were very upset that the Eagles were losing, but what can I say? That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Levin.
Just want to wish everybody, oh, sorry. There you go. I want to wish everybody happy holidays, whatever you celebrate. Enjoy your the Christmas holiday season. So, that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. McCluskey.
Just a reminder, the Oakmont Fire Department will be coming through with Santa through the Third Ward neighborhoods and the areas that they service this Sunday afternoon. And the Marion Golf Manor Association, if you live in that neighborhood, is starting a new tradition and will have their first annual holiday stroll through the neighborhood this Sunday. There's more information on their Facebook page. And just offer my personal well wishes to everyone to have a happy holidays and a healthy and happy new year. And see you at the first meeting next month.
Thank you. Mr. Siegel.
Yeah, just a couple things. Remind people that the Maryland Park Social is this weekend, which has become a very large, very popular event. I want to thank the board for adding the shredding events into the budget. To report that our 3-hour event, after just about 2 hours and 20 minutes, the truck was completely full. We averaged a car every 39 seconds coming in, and you can't unload them that fast. So it was very successful, and I had to stand there and tell 49 cars that they were already too late because the truck was gone. But it's a very popular thing, and hopefully we can eventually expand that to electronics and do other things that are in demand. And I just want to wish everyone a happy new year and a happy holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. President. And once again, I want to thank the staff of the township for their excellent work on the budget. This is a very busy time to do a lot of things in the year, and I appreciate the extra work that was done. And I just want to wish everybody a very, very happy holiday and a happy and healthy new year. And I look forward to seeing all of you in January.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis.
Thanks, Mr. President. Just want to thank our township manager and Director of Public Works and the Public Works crew for the great work that they did this year and continue to do on our leaf collection program. I don't think residents really understand how difficult that whole process is, especially if you throw in a snowstorm here and there, converting vehicles back and forth. for leaf collection is a very difficult job. And while an imperfect system, I think we do it about as well as you can do it. And that's a tribute to Larry, our township manager, our director of public works, and our public works crew. So thank you to them. Also want to remind our Fifth Ward residents that there's the final leaf collection will be for the Fifth Ward will be next Monday. So everybody needs to have their leaves to the curb by Sunday or Monday morning, first thing. And like everybody else, just want to wish everyone happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year. So,
Thank you. Mr. McGarity.
Okay, this Friday at the Brookline Firehouse, Santa Claus will be there at 6 o'clock, and it's for the Toys for Tots. And please bring an unwrapped gift for a very needy child, okay? They collect, Haverford Township collects more in Delaware County than anywhere for the Marines who are based out in Ridley. And the fella who comes every year, he told me they bring 2 trucks now, and they told me we give more to the kids than anywhere around. So that's great, and we want to keep that presence up with what we're doing for the children. Santa Sunday in the 7th Ward will be John this coming Sunday, and the fire truck will be around starting at 12 o'clock noon. So they go around and blow their whistles and give the kids candy and all that, so that's a good thing. The Christmas party will be, but this is for the commissioners, will be this next Wednesday, the 19th. And so everybody in the audience knows the township does not pay for this. The commissioners pay for it along with Mr. Gentili. And we have a party for the public works fellas who Andy was just talking about, who do a great job of the leaves and all the trash and things like that. So we have a party down there at lunchtime. And we also have a party the next day for the township employees here, and that's at lunchtime, and no taxpayers' monies are used for any of that. We all pay for that. So, and then the final thing, the Grange Estate had a wonderful party down there, and it really was a total success. And for any of you who have the children, or any of you that are rail bugs, what they call rail fans, rail bugs, go down to the Grange Estate on the weekends, take a look at what they have in the barn down there. It's a display that you won't believe. It is really wonderful. And once you take the kids down, be ready to take them every year, because they just keep building it up, and it gets bigger and better every year. That's at the Grange Estate in the 8th Ward.
And what are the hours for that?
On the weekends?
Yeah.
I would say they're about 10 in the morning till, those guys that do it love it. So just show up. They'll be there, I'll tell you that now, 10 in the morning to whatever time the kids end up, you know.
I think it closes at 4, Jim. But
Yeah, it closes at 4.
Is it 4?
4, yeah.
Okay.
Ryan was there the other day.
Unless Connor Quinn's there, you know. But Chad Brooks is usually here giving a Grange report. He and his wife go down. If you want to see a wonderful display of Christmas decorations and trees, go down to the Grange Estate, and you'll see those on weekends. There's always somebody there on weekends. So that's what I have for tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McGarry. Dr. Hart.
To the residents on Hampstead, I mean, I certainly understand your problem. I guarantee you keep working on trying to get a solution. Certainly the safety issues we'll look at and address. Again, this is a long-standing problem. We're moving things down the road. We need a solution. We need something comprehensive to deal with this. Just a few other things. This past week, we saw the passing of George H.W. Bush, someone that I certainly didn't always agree with his policies or his campaign approaches, but he was a true patriot in the truest sense of the word. And certainly his call for a kinder, gentler nation is something that I think almost all of us would appreciate in these times. Also in this past week, the list of cities and towns in the United States committed to a transition to 100% renewable energy passed 100, and that represents nearly 50 million Americans. Haverford is one of those 100 cities. The importance of the commitment was further enhanced in the recent weeks by several studies. One major U.S. scientific report by the 13 federal agencies said that unless steps are taken to combat global warming, the damage will knock off 10% of the U.S. economy by the end of the century. 2 other studies, scientific studies reported last week, said there's a quickening response of carbon emissions, which are now a speeding freight train. I think all this points to the importance of that we made a commitment several months ago to make a 100% switch to renewable energy. I think, and we're taking some steps in this year's budget to address that, but I think we're going to need to, in the coming years, accelerate our steps that we're taking, that this is becoming a really massive issue that we don't have time to wait on. And like everybody else, one other thing, for actions that individuals can take, there was a climate expo at Haverford College in November. You can see the presentations and videos on, there's a link through the EAC on the township website, and it addresses issues that individuals can take in addition to what the town is doing. And finally, I just, as everyone else, wish everyone a joyous and peaceful holiday season.
Thank you, Dr. Hart. I'll echo those sentiments, and I'd like to thank the township staff, Mr. Gentili in particular, for giving a yeoman's effort on his last preparation of the budget, so before he leaves us early next year. So thank you to you, your staff, Ms. Cuthbertson, all the departments, and I'll throw a special thank you to Mr. McGarity for organizing the party for the board. Mr. McGarity takes the lead on that, he and his wife, and get everything together. We pay for it, but he does a ton of the work. It's like having a Saturday night party and your wife does all the work. Mr. McGarity and Mrs. McGarity do all the work, get the food. She does the work, you get the credit. I understand that. And I'll echo the sentiments. We will take care of the problem. We'll look at it in a comprehensive plan. I will take the lead on that with the other commissioners that work with us and our staff to do that. And I wish everybody safe travels. For those that all have college students coming home, everybody get home safely and get back to school safely and enjoy the holidays and have a great season. Thank you very much. With that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're adjourned. Thank you.